Welcome back. Sorry this took longer than expected. Sometimes life and other work just gets in the way of side projects, unfortunately. Anyway, this week we are taking a look at Fatal Frame 3, The Tormented, and I actually have a little bit of a history with this game. I didn't realize until after I had started that this was the last game I ever rented, which brought back some memories. Rentals aren't really a thing anymore, and younger gamers probably have never actually walked into a Blockbuster or whatever their local mom and pop store might have been to rent a game that you picked out just because the box art looked good. Hard to think it's been 12 years since I rented a video game when it's something I used to do every weekend growing up. Funny how quickly times change. Anyway, Fatal Frame 3 was the last installment from the PlayStation 2 era, and is the only installment from said era that does not have an original Xbox port. I believe this is because by the time Fatal Frame 3 was releasing, Microsoft was more focused on the launch of the then upcoming Xbox 360. Microsoft, from what I can tell, had a hand in publishing Fatal Frame to the original Xbox. Makes sense to me why they didn't want to release this one, because I remember just how quickly they dropped support for the original Xbox when the 360 was announced. Anyway, we're going to try to start this portion off a little bit different by going more in-depth with the story this time around than with the previous two videos. The main plot of Fatal Frame 3 revolves around the tattooed priestess. I'm not going to go into every detail, but I am going to go over the main beats as best as I can and as I understood them. Similar to the other games, the main conflict from the game arises when a ritualistic sacrifice to keep some sort of hellish abyss closed backfires. In this case, we have the tattooed priestess to blame. The tattooed priestesses were individuals engraved by a sacred snake and holly tattoo that is meant to stop the spread of the rift. This tattoo is instilled with the pains and losses of those that visit the Kuze Shrine through a process called the piercing of the soul, in which the receiver of the tattoo is inked with the blood of the living and dead, this combined ink being called the ink of the soul. These priestesses practically give up who they are before receiving this tattoo, even pouring all of their emotions into a mirror of loss so that it can be broken before descending into the final abyss area, where they are taken and impaled along the walls of the Chamber of Thorns and sung to sleep with a lullaby. If this process fails, be it through them waking up, regretting their decisions, or what have you, they are skinned alive, and their skin is then saved in the tattoo altar room as a warning for future priests, with the rest of their body being placed on a boat and sent through the horizon. The tattooed priestess that Rei encounters, and the cause of the overall plot, is a woman named Reika. Reika was adopted into the Kuze Shrine with hopes of becoming the next tattooed priestess after her family was killed by an unspecified disaster. However, Reika was unable to forget her childhood love, Kaname, and she carried this desire with her into the rift, and her dreams started to affect Kaname. When he visited the shrine, which is strictly forbidden, after receiving help from the handmaiden Aname, he was murdered by the head of the Kuze family in front of the then awakened Reika. This caused the ritual to fail and the rift to be torn open. Now, those that suffer from immense grief can be lured into the mansion, or someone that is there currently can dream others into the mansion, even if they themselves aren't suffering from loss. There's more little details that we could easily get into, like a well where baby boys were thrown down, but we'd be here all day, and this isn't a detailed story analysis, just a way to give you an idea as to what the plot actually is. Anyway, this is the brief backstory explanation for the current events. The actual game starts with a very abrupt opening. Our main protagonist, Rei, is shown to be the sole survivor of an automobile accident, while her fiancé, Yu, has unfortunately passed away. Rei's fiancé had significance in that he was originally contacted by Kei, the sisters from Fatal Frame 2's uncle, because he was a folklorist that might be able to offer insight as to what happened to his missing niece. Kei even introduces Mio to Yu to learn more about what happened in the Lost Village. This proved to go nowhere, so Kei continued his research into finding the Lost Village and actually discovers a camera obscura near a Kuze shrine and shows it to Mio. This causes Mio to eventually start sleeping for days at a time, probably because it reminds her of the events that happened during the second game. Eventually, Mio has to be hospitalized so Kei can continue his work. Cut to September 7th, 1988. Rei and Miku, from the first Fatal Frame, are out photographing the Kuze Shrine for some unspecified assignment, during which Rei finds herself encountering and following her late fiancé Yu. After following Yu through a black and white daydream, Rei encounters Reika, the tattooed priestess. This encounter causes Rey to have visions of herself trapped in the Chamber of Thorns, undergoing the impalement ceremony. As the ritual is underway, a tattoo spreads across Rey's entire body before waking up in the exact same spot she was prior to her encounter with Yu's spirit. After returning home, Rey develops the previously taken photograph and discovers that Yu had actually been at the Kuze Shrine. Later that night, Rey finds herself dreaming of the Manor of Sleep, where the actual game starts to take place. After exploring the manor, a friendly ghost hand gives her the Camera Obscura, which she learns through a quick battle can exorcise ghosts. Soon after, she encounters another cursed victim, Yoshino, a woman who we later learn was the sole survivor of a horrific airplane crash. After talking with Yoshina, Reika appears and manages to touch Rey's shoulder, causing the iconic snake and holly tattoo to appear. It's from here on where Rey's dreams start getting progressively worse and worse, and she even starts dreaming the other protagonist's dreams. Now it's a race to try to figure out how to stop the curse from claiming her, as it has so many others. And I think that's a good place to stop. This was mostly meant to give context as to what the story was about, not necessarily go into full detail. Maybe I'll do that for future videos, but for here, we're just going to stick with this. I will say, however, that this Fatal Frame probably has the most intricate story of the original trilogy, mostly because it builds on the previous entries and is less straightforward, at least in my opinion. I also love that we got so many characters from previous installments. Fatal Frame and Fatal Frame 2 felt very disconnected with each other. You could play one without playing the other, and it really wouldn't make any difference. The same is true here to a degree, as the new curse takes front and center, but you really get an extra appreciation if you've played the previous games and have experience with them. But that's all well and good for the story. With that out of the way, let's get into the gameplay of this game. Fatal Frame 3 is a survival horror game, just like the previous two entries. There's limited resources, an abundance of spooky enemies, puzzles that need to be solved, terrifying amounts of backtracking, fixed camera angles, notes, journals, and other supplementary material for the main story. On the surface, Fatal Frame 3 isn't really all that different from the other two installments. However, there are a few changes. For starters, the game is broken up into two distinct sections. During the day, you'll play as Rey and explore the house, obtain notes, and talk with other characters. At night, you'll play as one of the protagonists to try and complete a goal and progress further into the mansion. And I personally thought that having this day and night cycle really made the game easy to pick up and play. There's just something nice about a horror game having a zone that feels somewhat safe. It's like when you find a typewriter in Resident Evil. There's that moment of relief that really helps you gather up your thoughts before venturing out again. Fatal Frame 3 also ditches the Spirit Stone upgrade system from Fatal Frame 2, and instead just uses Spirit Points for all of your upgrades. I actually preferred Fatal Frame 2's method of upgrades. There was a little more decision making involved in comparison to the more straightforward approach in 3. It's just a minor grievance, but I like that little extra element of deciding and prioritizing which upgrades I thought would yield the best results. I don't know why the developers kept changing the system every game, but whatever. The Camera Obscura is obviously back and handles about what you'd expect at this point in the series. Using the right analog stick will control which direction the character moves, while the left analog stick controls the direction the camera is pointing. Alternate fire may be used depending on how much charge you currently have and what functions you currently have equipped. The camera can easily swap between multiple types of film and up to 3 camera functions, depending on the current playable character and whether or not it's New Game Plus. I don't actually have too many complaints regarding the camera. 3 games in and you kinda get used to having spooky spirits trying to murder your face. The ghosts themselves at least have a good variety to them, so it never really drags on too much. Favorite one is probably the one that dwells in the crawl space. That was some good stuff there. Oh, and resources are also handled a little bit differently than with previous installments. While there are healing items and film located throughout the manor, there are certain spots that recharge every night with certain items. This is very helpful because the rate in which you unlock different portions of the manor is slower compared to previous installments. You're not going to be opening up as much as quickly as previous games, so there's less opportunities to get items from new areas. Learning where to get your healing items and extra film is essential for survival. Additionally, the manor itself isn't 100% available for any one character for most of the game. The Manor of Sleep is comprised of both new sections specifically designed for Fatal Frame 3 and previous areas from the last 2 installments. Rey will primarily unlock and explore original rooms in the Manor of Sleep, while Miku will explore Himuro Mansion areas, and Kei will explore places from All Gods Village. Each of the protagonists have their own abilities and advantages for the various obstacles they'll encounter throughout the game. Rei is the most capable of the playable characters, boasting the most versatile camera use in addition to her flash ability. Miku has the ability to slow down ghosts with the Sacred Stone, and the ability to charge her spirit power level with double. Kei, on the other hand, has the ability to be a complete and total bitch by crouching and hiding. Puzzles are on about the same level of difficulty as in previous games. They require you to find an item or take a photo of a previously explored area to uncover or unlock a door. Admittedly, after 3 games I was hoping they would try to get a little bit more creative with the puzzles, but whatever. The actual main challenge for my playthroughs involved the vanishing ghosts. Most are fine, get a vibration on your camera, then take a photo of whatever ghost happens to be in the area, simple. However, there are several ghosts that required multiple save loads for me to capture them on film. This wouldn't bother me too much if they didn't give you points for upgrades. After a while, I genuinely started getting frustrated with how many times I had to try to capture some of these ghosts. It's like, come on, almost, f it. I'm not trying to be a completionist either, but something about it and how easy these ghosts are to miss really started getting under my skin after a while, and was honestly probably the thing that added to my overall playtime with the game. Whatever, at least the game is still pretty scary. Actually, a lot of stuff I left out of my plot synopsis is genuinely some of the more disturbing and creepy portions of the game. Like, there really is a well where they threw male babies in, and engravers get their arms cut off just for being involved in the ritual process. There's a lot of horror in this game that you only get by delving into the notes and other story bits hidden throughout the game. That's not to say the main story isn't scary. Plenty of the main story is downright unsettling. I don't know who hurt these developers, but all the rituals they come up with for the closing of the rift, they're just downright mean. Fatal Frame 3 also has a very dreary, dreamlike atmosphere, which is fitting considering the story. The ghosts themselves are pretty freaky, and the music is just as eerie as it was in previous installments. Really, I only give minor grievances to this game, but nothing major. As far as trilogies go, Fatal Frame is probably one of the most consistent in gaming. None of the sequels ever diminished in quality from previous installments, and I may be in the minority, but I enjoy each game in the series more than the last. Fatal Frame 3, surprisingly, is actually my favorite of the series. Apart from the upgrade system, everything felt like an improvement over the previous game. Combat was fun and challenging for the most part, with a diverse amount of enemies to keep things interesting. I thought the puzzles, while at times a bit samey, were well made and occasionally forced me to think. And most of the ghosts had creepy backstories and were fun to discover, apart from some of the vanishing ghosts, which admittedly has been a problem for most of the series. And while I kind of wish the manor had been more open, like with the Lost Village in Fatal Frame 2, I grew to really love the Manor's sleep and appreciated seeing older levels mixed in for added flavor. Speaking of which, the manor was appropriately atmospheric and creepy in design, and even the larger casts were well characterized, and I really wanted every one of them to survive, especially considering what happened to most of the casts in the previous installments. Plus, getting to play multiple characters was a nice surprise and change of pace. And the story was once again very well crafted, with plenty of disturbing content for those that like a good ghost story. And with that, I don't think I have too much to add. When I started these playthroughs, I didn't have any context for these games. I'd only ever really played them as a kid and in my early teens, but they weren't games like Resident Evil where I'd play them over and over again. They were games with cool box art that I'd rent once in a while and never really think of them again. And you know what? I feel like I missed out. These were well-made games. Nothing groundbreaking, but sometimes you don't need to be groundbreaking or the first to do something. Sometimes doing something well is good enough. Each game in the original trilogy was a well-crafted horror game. I don't know why they never caught on in the same way that other horror games did. Maybe it was marketing. I don't remember seeing any previews of the Fatal Frame games. Then again, I didn't really follow games in the same way that I do now. Maybe them being distinctly Japanese was a problem? I don't know. I know why the recent aren't popular, but not this original trilogy. At any rate, I don't regret any of my time spent. And if you ever get the chance, find a copy or get them digitally and give them a whirl. I think each of these games are a great way to spend a weekend. Anyway, that's gonna be it for me. Hopefully the next videos will be quicker, and hopefully you enjoyed this one. I'm RabidRetrospectGames, and have a great day.